Hey everybody, it's Mike, 55 years young from the Villages, Florida. Community information, join our group either in the links below, all kinds of other resources we have down there, or the description of this YouTube channel. Let's get right into it. I am Mike, 55 years young, and can you legally reside in the Villages, Florida if you're under 55? And the answer is yes. There's a lot of confusion on this. We see it all the time in our group. So let's get right into it. Leave me your comments. If you have any additional questions, I'll follow up on them. Now, number one, the biggest takeaway you need to know from this video right away is that yes, absolutely, you can live in the Villages, Florida. If you're under 55, you can reside in the Villages, Florida, but with strict limitations enforced under federal and state housing laws, as well as the community's own deed restrictions. The Villages is officially a 55 plus age restricted retirement community. It's also the largest planned community in the world, largest 55 plus community in the world, governed by the Federal Housing for Older Persons Act, HOPA. It is actually the only legal form of discrimination allowed in the housing market. Also governed under Florida statutes, which allow such communities to limit occupancy to older adults while providing some flexibility. Here's a breakdown of the key rules as of 2025. Core requirements for residency: at least one household member must be 55 or older. Now, there's a lot of caveats to that, so hang on, I'm going to get into exactly how and why that is not necessarily true. It says here that every home in the Villages must be occupied by at least one person age 55 plus. This ensures that a community qualifies as housing for older persons and maintains its age-restricted status. A spouse, partner, or roommate under 55 can live there full-time alongside the qualifying resident. Now, you've got to watch the rest of this video because this is not necessarily true. In fact, it is not true anymore. And the reason why it's not true anymore is because of how large the Villages has become and how many people actually already live here that are over 55. All right, no permanent residency for those under 19. Individuals younger than 19 cannot live in the Villages on a full-time basis. They can visit, e.g. children and grandchildren, for up to 30 days per calendar year. But exceeding this requires special approval from the developer or community development districts. The 80-20 rule, Florida's flexibility provision. Federal and Florida law under HOPA requires that at least 80% of the community's occupied units have one resident age 55 plus. Now that's key. Did you hear that? Let me read that again. Federal and Florida law under HOPA requires that at least 80% of the community's occupied units have one resident age 55 plus. This leaves room for up to 20% of units to be occupied entirely by people under 55. Now, this is the world's largest community, 150,000 people. Don't you think that almost everybody here is already 55 plus? And the answer is yes. So do you think that anyone cares, including the developer, including new home sales, new construction, spec homes, or resales, is going to ask you if you're 55? You think they're even going to ask? And the answer is no. They're not going to ask because they don't need to know, because it doesn't matter. The only time it would matter is if for some reason the number of households with one single member at least under or over 55 or over, were to drop below 80%. And I think we're in no chance of that happening. I don't know the exact number of households that have 55 or older, but let me know in the comments if you know. All right. However, the Villages operates well below this cap. Only about 5% of residents are under 55 overall. That doesn't even mean 5% of houses are lacking one member 55 or older. It doesn't even mean that. So it's even less than that. And that means standalone under 55 households are extremely rare, and many face scrutiny or denial during the purchase lease approval. No, actually, where I'm getting this information, that's not right. Just simply not right. In other words, what I said a few minutes ago is correct. Nobody's going to check. No one cares. Excuse me. I'm 55 or older, so I have to clear my throat. Practical implications for under 55 residents. Spouses or partners. If you're under 55 but married to or living with someone 55 plus, you can reside there legally and full-time with access to most amenities, though some facilities, like certain recreation centers, have additional age minimums of 19 plus. Well, this doesn't apply again. It doesn't apply. If you're a resident and you own a house and you legally own it, you can still use everything. Single under 55 adults, legally allowed in up to 20% of units, right? But the Villages developer Holding Security Inc. and CDDs CDDs heavily prioritize 55 plus buyers. Approval for purchase or rental is not guaranteed and requires verification of the community's overall compliance. Yeah, if they don't like you, if you have like a really bad first impression with the developers and people over there in the office, they can just tell you're not over 55. I'm sorry. They could do that. In practice, single under 55 residents are uncommon inside the core neighborhoods. Well, yeah, uncommon, but you're out there. Give me a shout out if you're one of these people in the comments. I know you're there. Families with children, not permitted for permanent residency due to the under 19 ban. The community isn't designed for kids with amenities and rules geared toward retirees. Now that's with the exception of Middleton. I believe Middleton is the neighborhood for families. You can let me know more if you know more about that in the comments. All right, recent developments, expanding options. In late 2024, the villages received approval to remove age restrictions from certain large tracts of land, e.g. via zoning changes in Sumter County, allowing for mixed-use developments that could include under 55 housing, apartments, and family-oriented options. I didn't know this. This is aimed at accommodating workers and reducing commuting, but these are separate from the core 55-plus neighborhoods and still in early stages as of November 2025. Adjacent areas like Middleton, recently opened, that's what we were talking about earlier, are fully open to under 55 residents and families, offering similar access to some villages' amenities. All right, so that's where you want to go if you're raising a family in a retirement community. This is a really nice place. Lowest crime rate in the state of Florida. Check out our group description, the Villages Florida community information on Facebook, and you'll see all the stats about why this is so great and all the different things that are unique to it that you may not have known about. Enforcement and next steps. How it's enforced. During home sales or rentals, buyers must submit affidavits verifying ages, and the community monitors compliance to stay HOPA eligible, avoiding discrimination lawsuits. Violations can lead to fines or eviction. And like I said, it's at least 95% of households that have 55 plus, because there's at least 95% of residents that are 55 plus. So it's probably only like 2%, 2.5% maybe maximum. And they can get up to 20%. So no one's going to care. Yeah, you got to fill this stuff out. You got to say how old you are. You got to tell the truth. But in reality, it's not going to matter. You're here. You're going to be here as long as you're over 19. All right. If you're interested, contact local. Okay. In summary, while legal barriers don't exist for under 55 adults, especially with a 55 plus co-resident, the village's culture and rules make it primarily a 55 plus haven, which it is. For unrestricted under 55, look at Middleton or actually anywhere. Unless you have kids. If you have kids, go to Middleton. If you don't have kids, you can go anywhere in the villages. So I look forward to seeing you around town. Wave, say hi. I'm Mike, 55 years young, signing off. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.